let's take a look at weathering summary style. Alright, welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and part 5 of the amusing hobby 1/35th scale Shot Kal. In this video we'll take a look at a summary of the detail painting and the weathering process so far. And if you want to see a step-by-step of this process, click on that link right up there, and or click in the link in the description box or at the end of the video, and that should take you to the step-by-step of this part. So what I did is, the first thing I did is started painting the details. So I had to paint the canvas cover, I had to paint the ammo cans, the Uzis, the fuel can, or these fuel cans or whatever they are that hadn't been applied to the vehicle yet. I had to paint the tracks, the tools, etc. And for that, for the most part, I used Vallejo paints. For the metal stuff, I used Vallejo metal color steel. Use that for the crew weapons and for the metal parts of the tools and the tow cables. For the tracks, I used one of my grays. Can't remember which one, but it was Vallejo. It was a Vallejo paint. Handles was I used Vallejo, and I used Vallejo for this canvas cover. For that canvas cover, I used khaki because it's similar in color to the base color, but it's a little greener to make it look a little bit different and look like fabric instead of, you know, something else. For these ammo cans here and on the 30 caliber machine guns, I used Vallejo Model Air Olive Drab. So once all the detail stuff was painted, I was able to move on to weathering. And what I did is, for the first step, is I used well, the first thing I did was pin wash using Ammo by MIG brown wash for German dark yellow. This isn't German dark yellow, but it's really close. So I did a pin wash on the whole vehicle, focusing on the edges, seams, all the details on both the hull and the turret. Once I got all that done, I moved on to a dust wash. Now for this, I used this 502 Untitled ABT 035 buff, and I made a really thick wash. Wasn't as thin as I usually use, so I wanted to build it up in along the edges and in corners and along details a little bit more to represent dust that's accumulated in certain areas of the vehicle. I also, before I did that, using my Untitled colors, I used this one. I used light mud and dark mud, and basically just splotched dots all over, and then using this brush right here, I just stippled it all. No, it wasn't that brush, I'm sorry. This one. I just stippled and jabbed and got a nice dirty smear all the way around the side skirts, around these lower portions here, and the lower portions, and on up a little bit onto the top. of the front whole plate here to make it look like really ground in dirt. Then I went to this, and using let's see, this brush right here, which is a Calibri number 2. It's a red sable. I basically just applied it kind of somewhat heavily, like in corners and along edges, and then used this brush right here, which is a Filbert, I believe, number 8. It's just some really cheap brand because they get worn out, as you can see, pretty quickly. And I just blended it, and I did that all over the hull and the turret. Then once that dried, I went on to Ultimate Weathering Wash Light Dirt. And what I did with that is I wanted to darken it up a little bit more in corners and along edges to just add some variation in the dust and dirt tones. So using this and using this brush here, which is a number 3, the Fine Touch Round, another inexpensive brush that, you know, doing weathering just obliterates brushes. So I get decent brushes that don't cost too much. Usually they're retired paint brushes that have been converted to weathering usage. But anyway, just built it up really well in the corners, long edges. Again, anywhere where I wanted like some deposits and to get some variation in colors. And this right here is kind of nice because it dries into this like flat it's a flat coating almost. It's not really paint, but it's not like a wash either. So once it dries, then I can use a stiff brush depending on how much I want to remove, like this or this. So you can see a little bit of it puffing off there from where I scrubbed it. And then just using that, and even a Q-tip, depending on how much I want to remove, you just kind of scrub the edges, and it feathers it out, blends it, and makes it look a little more dusty because it's so dry and flat. So I did that over the whole vehicle, including the turret. I forgot to mention, after I did the wash, I did use a sponge and a, man, I can't remember what color I used. It was like a dark brown. I think it was leather brown. No, it's mahogany brown, I think. Yeah, I think, nope. It was leather brown. It was kind of a really dark brown. And using a sponge, I just added some chipping along the edges of the steel parts, not so much the armor plated parts, but the softer, you know, thin steel components, stuff that would get banged up, a little bit of chipping on it. Did that over the whole vehicle, around turret or hatches, stuff like that. But that was before I did this other stuff. So then once the Ultimate Weathering Wash dried, then I used 502 Abteilung ABT 160 engine grease. This is really good for doing grease stains, fuel stains, stuff like that, because it maintains its shininess. And if you you know, so it looks a little bit more like fluid stains than just say a black or blackish brown wash would do. So I put fuel stains around the fuel filler caps, along the engine, deck components, just to show, you know, work has been done. There's leaky stuff going on. Same with the running gear. in the back engine access panel, or access panels where the engine compartment is, and just added those around wherever I think they might accumulate, so we can show that it does have some leaky stuff going on with it. So with that pretty well. Oh, then the last thing I did, using Vallejo Model Wash, this is a water-based acrylic, light rust and plain rust. I did plain rust first and just splotched it over these tracks in the front. Once that dried, then I used the light rust, splotched down there, just give it some variation. And then using the Ultimate Weathering Wash, I just pretty much put a good coating of it over the whole track, spare track links, let it dry really good, and then rubbed it off with a brush and a Q-tip just to leave deposits in the detail and to dusty up the surface a little bit. So with that pretty well finished up the weathering process for the most part. I'm going to look at it a little bit more and see if I do need to do anything else, but for all intents and purposes, I think that with that, this kit is done, with the exception of mounting the machine guns, which I will do before I do the final episode of this series. So that ends part number 5 of the Amusing Hobby 135th scale Shot Kal and the summarization of the weathering process that I used on this kit. So again, if you want to see the full step-by-step video, click on the link at the end of the video, or click in the description box down below on the link I provide, and you can see the full step-by-step of everything I did as far as the weathering process goes. So as always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude. Stay tuned. I will be posting the final video of the series where I discuss my thoughts on the kit and do a quick slideshow of some a little bit better photos. So thanks for watching, and I will see you all later.